Hello, everyone. I'm going to just wait a couple minutes to let everyone join me. So yeah, we'll just give everybody a couple minutes just to join, and then we'll get started in 2 minutes. So if you haven't joined, please go ahead and join in. Hello. Okay, looks like I have 5 viewers, but I can't see who all of you are. So if you want to go ahead and chat your name in the group chat, that'd be great so that I can know who's here. Hey everyone, if you're joining us now, I was just asking people to chat their names to the chat box on the side so I can see who all is here. And I can make sure that I can follow up with you if you have any questions afterwards. Can you all hear me okay? I haven't seen anyone's response yet, so I don't know if my mic is working and if you guys can hear me. Hello. Hey everyone. Can you hear me okay? If you guys can hear me, if you could go ahead and write your names in the chat box, that'd be great so I can see who actually is here and joining us. Awesome. Okay, cool. Awesome. So it looks like everyone can hear me. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. I'm sorry, it's not actually showing up in my chat box, but it looks like it's showing up in the comments. So, hey everyone, I'm sorry that we're starting a little bit late, but I promise this information session or this webinar is going to be really helpful in understanding your transition to City or Chicago. Before we get started, if you haven't already seen me on any of the Facebook Live or other webinars, my name is Connie. I'm the admissions manager here at City Year Chicago. And I have the privilege of helping you transition to City Year and making sure that you are prepared for your service year. I'm a proud City Year Chicago alum. So I also served here back in 2010. I served here for 2 years. My first year, I was a Corps member on the west side of Chicago. I was working at a high school on the west side in Garfield Park. And I was working with 9th grade students in an English classroom. And then my second year, I actually decided to serve a second year and did a second year of service with City Year Chicago. And during my second year, I was a team leader on the south side of Chicago in Inglewood at a high school there, and got to manage 8 other Corps members whose it was their first year at City Year. And so that was a really incredible managing experience. And I got to manage peers at the age of 22. And so that was a really great opportunity as well. And so I'm super excited that you all are going to be serving with us next year. It's also a really historic year for us because it's our 25th anniversary Corps next year. And so there's a lot of just campaigning around that because we're really excited that City of Chicago is turning 25. And so I hope you are all excited as well. And I hope that you are getting excited as you're starting to prepare for your service. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me share my screen right now so you can see this PowerPoint in front of me. Let's see. Cool. Share. Cool. Awesome. So you should be able to see this PowerPoint that says CYCHI 2018-2019 confirmed AmeriCorps member webinar. If you could go ahead and comment, and just so that I know that you can actually see it, that'd be really great so that I can continue and make sure that you're not missing anything. So if you can go ahead and chat or comment, whichever one makes sense, please go ahead and do that so I can see that you're able to see the content. Awesome. Thank you, Drew. Thank you. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and get started then. Cool. So perfect. So today, our agenda for today, again, I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, but as much as you know about your service year, the better for you, because again, this is really critical to you being prepared for your service year. So we'll do a quick welcome. We're going to talk about what service looks like here at City of Chicago specifically. I'm going to talk about benefits. I'm going to talk about also living in Chicago and what that looks like. I've lived here for 8 years. I'm actually not a Chicago native, and I've been living here for the last 8 years. And so I'm going to share some tips around living in Chicago. We're going to talk about budgeting and what a budget looks like, talk about next steps and what to expect from City of Chicago, and then any questions you have. Feel free to go ahead and ask questions throughout the webinar, because I want to make sure that we're addressing the questions during a relevant piece of your time. And so go ahead and ask the questions during the webinar. So really quickly, our service. This is what our Chicago Public Schools looks like at a glance. And so this is actually the demographics of all of our students across Chicago, not just the schools that we work in. But 80.2% of our students are on the free or reduced lunch program, which just indicates that they are of a lower socioeconomic status. So as you can see, 80.2%, that's a pretty high percentage, but that is reflective of also our students at all of our city or schools as well. In Chicago, there are 381,000 students from the pre-K to the 12th grade. In Chicago next year, so during your Corps year, we'll have 242 Corps members, which is really crazy to think about, because this will actually be our largest Corps that we've seen in Chicago yet. And so again, we're super excited about that. There are 660 schools total in Chicago. Of the 660 schools that of the 660 schools that are in Chicago, your Corps will actually be working in 29 of those schools. And so again, that's a very small percentage of kind of all the schools that are in Chicago, but just so that you know, we're going to be in 29 schools. And then the graduation rate is 66.3%. So it's not great. It's not actually as bad as it used to be. And so again, we're really kind of working here at City of Chicago to ensure that our students are more on track to graduate from high school. And so we're trying to target, younger grades from 4th through 8 before they even get to high school, but we also work with a small percentage of high school students as well. In terms of demographics, so this is kind of our racial makeup of our students. A lot of our students are African American, so about 37.7% are African American. 46.5% are Hispanic. If you kind of go down to the 5th bullet point, you'll see that. 3.9% are Asian, 9.9% are white. And so a large majority of our students in Chicago Public Schools, as you can see, are made up of African American and Hispanic students. What's I think really interesting about Chicago, City of Chicago's model is that we actually work with a small number of schools on the north side in Rogers Park. And so there's actually a handful of schools that are very diverse, and these 3 schools have about 40 plus languages that are spoken in their schools, and so it's just really cool to kind of see the the diversity of our schools and the diversity of our school partnerships, but also our students, and some of the unique challenges, but also really kind of cool things that come from working with students that are different in that way. We also have 17.7% are ELL students, which just means that they're English language learners and that English is not their first language. And then about 13.6% are enrolled in special education. And then, like I mentioned before, with the free and reduced lunch, 80.2% are from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, and so they are on the free or reduced lunch program at CPS. Any questions so far? That's a little bit. Oh, why? Okay, let me see. Hold on. Give me 1 second, guys. I want to make sure. I'm sorry that you cannot see this. Um, trying to see why it's not. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to figure out why this is not showing your screen. Let's try this again. I'm so sorry, y'all. My tech has been. Okay. Okay, so this is the slide that I was just on. I can also go back if you can't see it currently. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna try to see if I can. Sorry, guys, this is really crappy. Okay. I'm so sorry, y'all. This is crazy. Okay, hide. I'm just gonna have to stop sharing and then continue to share every slide. So it might be a little bit slower, y'all. But I apologize again, but we'll make this work. So I'm gonna go ahead and screen share this. Cool. All right, so this is what service in Chicago currently looks like. And so as I said before, you should be able to at least see the screen. So currently we're in 26 schools. And so because we are growing next year for the 25th anniversary Corps, we'll be actually going from 26 schools to 29 schools, which is really exciting because it's actually the first time we've grown in the last 3 years, which is a big deal here. So get excited for just the records that you'll be breaking as a Corps. Currently in our 26 schools, 19 of those are elementary and middle schools, and then 7 of those are high schools. And so the elementary and middle schools, one thing that I was really interested to find when I got to Chicago is that they call them grammar schools here, but pretty much a grammar school is grades K through 8. And so a lot of our middle school buildings are not actually separate, but they actually operate in the same building as the younger grades from K through 8, K through 6. And so you'll have elementary and middle schools together. And so in an elementary and middle grammar school, you might be working with grades anywhere between the 4th through the 8th grade. And then in high schools, we're typically working with 9th graders. And then if we have some capacity, we're also working with 10th graders in that way. But I think what's cool about high school is also that you'll also start building relationships with students that are outside of kind of your focus list, which we'll talk about later. And so you'll be building relationships with students that are outside of your grade level, outside of the levels that you typically work with. And so you have that advantage of working with people who are a little bit older than your focus list students. Like I mentioned, you'll be working with 4th through 9th graders, and then city year teams are typically consisting of 7 to 12 AmeriCorps members. it really kind of just depends on how big your school is and how many school students are enrolled at your school, and that's where the difference will be in terms of your team size. But an average team definitely is anywhere between 7 to 12. I don't think we've gone past 12 in the last couple of years, but it is anywhere between 7 to 12. There are 1,600 unique students that are served by City Year Corps members currently, and so that number will definitely go up because we're actually growing from 230 Corps members to 242 next year, which is really exciting. And then each AmeriCorps member has 10 to 12 focus list students that they're responsible for in terms of their attendance, behavior, and course performance. I'm going to go ahead and share this again. All right, so our service model currently is the A, Bs, and Cs, which you should probably be really familiar with at this point. Hold on, why is it not? Sorry guys, this is not working well for me today. Okay. So our service model is attendance, behavior, and course performance. So those are what we call the A's, B's, and C's. Attendance is really anything that has to do with the attendance. And so we do something called morning greeting. So at the beginning of every day, we're typically stationed outside of the school building where the double doors of the school building are, where students are typically entering into. And so we'll stand there and we'll play some songs. We'll do just music, dancing, high-fiving our students. One of my favorite kind of parts about morning greeting was the fact that I got to really check in with my students in terms of where they were emotionally, because a lot of my students were carrying a lot of burdens before they even got to school. And so I got to really kind of see what they were, see kind of how they entered the school, and got to check in with them before the school day even started, rather than waiting until first or second period to check in with them. And so I got to school early, would stand outside the doors, high five my students as well as any other student that was walking in. And then if I saw a student get off the bus, because there was a bus stop right in front of our school entrance, if I saw a student get off the bus that didn't look, really happy, or just didn't have that same energy that I'm normally used to with that student, I would, pull them aside for a couple minutes and just ask, like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? I just noticed that you're not as excited about school today, even though, you did really well the last couple of days. Like, is there anything that I can help you with? And it was kind of a good way for me to not only build that relationship with that student, but also just kind of let that student unload any burdens that they may have from that morning, before they even got into school, so that they could actually focus on their schoolwork once they got into the school building. We're also doing phone calls. And so, as a teacher, you're typically, once students get into your first period classroom, you're typically, starting your lesson right away. And so as a core member, you're really providing that additional support for students, and also that teacher. And so if students are not in their first period class by a certain time, you're making sure that they are either on their way to school, or that they're, going to be out for the rest of the day. And so that you actually are knowing like what exactly is happening in terms of that student, and can check in with that student's parent or guardian. This was also kind of a great way for me to build that relationship with parents, and so that they knew, like, if I didn't see them in first period, that they were going to get a phone call home. And so that was also really exciting, because it was just really cool to see that, their parents were expecting me to call, or at least like have some kind of relationship where like they knew a phone number that they can reach me at, so that if their student didn't make it to school, that they would at least have an adult to check in with at the school. We also did some attendance initiatives, and so encouraging our students to get to school on time, such as hot chocolate for the first 150 students that get to school early. Sometimes we have open gym and have our students play basketball with our core members. And so just kind of trying to make school exciting for our students, and giving them any initiatives and any incentives to get to school earlier than they normally did. And then we also put on an attendance rally, which pretty much just emphasizes the importance of why it's so important for students to actually attend school on time and be on time for classes. And so we actually did an attendance rally, and pretty much did a competition of all of our students in their first period classrooms. And the first period that had the best attendance won like a pizza party, or sometimes some of our corporate sponsors will donate some like swag items. And so we would give away swag items to our students in their first period classrooms, so that they would be encouraged and be encouraged in trying to get to school on time. let's see. Okay. In terms of behavior, so, oop, can you guys see this? Sorry, y'all. This is really bugging me. Okay, behavior. So in terms of behavior, our students, we would do a lot of relationship building, like I said. And so not only are we concerned with our students' grades in their classrooms, but we're also concerned with our students and how they act as leaders in and outside the classroom. And so your behavior focus list will be students that are anywhere that are either really disruptive and like the class clown all the time or disrupting class, or they might even be students who are on the other far end of the spectrum and they're just super not engaged and they're really having their head down a lot. They're just not participating in class, and you just have no idea what's going on with that student. And so you'll actually have lunch sessions with them. During my core year, we used to call them swag lunches, so students with a goal. Students with a goal, and so really the purpose of those lunches would be to help our students understand the importance of what it means to just be a leader. And so being a leader is also goal setting and helping them learn that if they want to get to the next grade level, if they want to do better in a certain subject, if they want to do better in life in general, that they could do that by setting goals for themselves and just checking in with them about the goals that they've set every week so that they have some accountability towards that. We also sometimes have one-on-one conversations, and so sometimes it might not be appropriate to have a conversation with the entire group, and so pulling a student aside and having like a special lunch with them to make them feel like they are special, and having those conversations on a one-on-one basis to really kind of hold that student to a higher standard of accountability is also really important. But really kind of the main goal of our mentoring and behavior lunches is to really help our students understand that we're really there for them and we want to see them succeed, and that it's not just about the academics, but really about them as people and as students. Um, the last piece is the course performance, so the C of the A, Bs, and Cs. Course performance, of course, is our students' grades, because as much as we can mentor and help them on their behavior and coach them, it really doesn't mean anything if they're failing their classes. And so how do we help that student continue to perform well in schools? And so we do this by not only, we do that by small group tutoring and doing pullouts of classrooms. And so if a lesson is being taught that the student is not ready for, or they're confused in class about a particular lesson or topic, that they're getting doing small groups with you with a couple of other students who may be struggling as well, and really kind of learning that concept in a smaller setting so that they're able to really ask the questions and feel comfortable. A lot of times I found out that my students were really uncomfortable asking questions in a large group setting, and I was as well when I was younger. And so it's just a lot easier for students to ask questions and get clarity on the topic that they're studying when they don't necessarily have all these other students in the classroom looking at them and judging them for the questions that they're asking. So small group tutoring was a big piece of what I did as a core member. You're also doing whole class support. And so sometimes the teacher will ask you to be in there just to kind of support the whole classroom. And so you just kind of walk around and making sure that all of the students are understanding what the assignment is. And then you're also helping with behavior management in that case as well. You also do some after school tutoring. And so most of our schools actually have homework help as a part of their after school programs, because a lot of our students don't necessarily have people at home that can always help them with their homework assignments. And so just having a space after school where city or core members can continue to tutor and continue to support academically in terms of our students, so that they're able to be successful in their classrooms. And then last but not least, lesson planning is definitely a piece of our course performance work, because again, you have to be prepared for what lesson you're teaching in order to do well in those small groups and actually teaching our students. And so you'll have to do some sort of lesson planning with the help of our impact coaches here at City of Chicago, who will help you kind of teach you on how to do all of these effective lessons. Awesome. I'm gonna wait, I think. Why is it not showing up? Can you guys see the after school program screen? I'm sorry that I keep asking you all, but it's not working on my end, so I'm assuming it's not working on yours. Okay, not yet. Sorry, y'all. Okay, this is really frustrating. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, let's do this again. Application window. Okay, now you should be able to see it. Our service model, and it should say after school programs. Awesome. I see that Sarah sees it, so hopefully it'll start showing up for you all as well. Okay, cool. Awesome. So after school programs, like I mentioned, a lot of our students have um, parents and guardians that will help, but then also there are some students that don't necessarily have support at home in terms of getting their homework done. And so our city year teams really ensure that students are safe and engaged after school, and they do this through homework help sessions as well as other extracurricular activities. And so this is kind of a great way for you if you have a particular passion that you're really kind of passionate about and want to kind of teach our students or want to pass on to our students. The extracurricular activities and after school program is kind of a perfect way to teach your students about what you're passionate about and create create clubs and create activities around that. It's also a great way, again, like I said, if a student is really kind of missing a lot of work in a particular class because they've been out for a while, or they just were not paying attention and they just like need some extra time at school to get that homework done. It's really a great space to get that homework done so that their homework is not counted against them during that year. You're also going to be putting on events. So we could do a couple different events. The first one is called a VIP lounge, and that happens on a quarterly basis after every quarter. And this is really our way to help reward students who improve their A's, B's, and C's during the quarter. So A's being attendance, B being behavior, and then C being course performance. And so you'll work with your teacher as well as your team to nominate students who've done really well, gotten their grades up, gotten to school on time more than they usually do, to reward them. And so this will happen during the school hours, and you'll typically put on a theme. And so I know one of my schools here in Chicago this year put on like a slumber party theme. And so they actually had like blanket forts and pizza party, and had a little projector screen playing movies during that time. And again, it's just a really fun way to help our students understand like there are great consequences for you doing really well in school, and we want to continue encouraging that. The second event that I want to talk to you guys about today is family engagement nights. And so this is really our way to engage our students' village by inviting them to come learn alongside their students. And so typically you'll do about two a year. One is going to be ELA, English Language Arts themed, and then the other one will be math themed. And these events will really help our students bring their parents and guardians and their families along to help learn alongside them. And so we'll have different activities that are, again, based on these themes, and just getting their village involved in their learning. It's really kind of a cool way to get to know parents, but also a cool way to kind of keep them engaged and keep them from kind of helping learn the material that they're also learning in the school as well. Our next piece is the benefits section. Let me pause for a second to make sure I don't have any questions. Okay, benefits. Awesome. It looks like everyone can see the benefits as well. Cool. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you all. Okay, so the benefits. Awesome. So we're going to quickly talk about benefits for the next couple of minutes and just talk about all the things that are that are part of being a City or Chicago Corps member. So the first one, awesome. So the first one is going to be the stipend. So as you all know, and I'm sure you've heard this multiple times throughout the last couple of months, the stipend for City of Chicago is $630, and that is given every 2 weeks through direct deposit. And that is, I wanted to mention that that's the before tax amount. So the $630 is before taxes, and so you'll actually have that So the number that that's deposited into your account will have some taxes taken out. So typically I say, the tax amount will be a little bit different based on what you put on your tax forms, who's in your household, all of those items. But typically the post-tax amount will be anywhere between like $500 to like $600. And so depending on, again, like I said, what your household looks like, what your tax forms look like, that post-tax amount will change. Your education award will be about $5,920. So that can be used towards future school, or you can use it actually towards loans that you've already taken out to go to school. And so I actually ended up saving both of my education awards because I got 2 different awards for serving 2 years with City Year. And so I had almost $11,000 saved up in my AmeriCorps account once I was done with my 2 years of City Year. And I just recently graduated from grad school and got my master's in public administration. And so I actually got to use that $11,000 to pay for my first year in grad school, which was great because it saved me a lot of money in going to school, and that was amazing. And so people often talk about, oh, well, I don't earn that much money while I'm in City Year, but there are some financial benefits to doing City Year after your year of service is over, because again, you get all these different awards. The other thing too is that you get a free transit pass, and so if you don't have a car, it's actually a perfect kind of reason to serve in Chicago, because Chicago has really reliable transportation, public transportation. And as a part of a City or Chicago, you'll get a free transit pass, which typically costs about $100 a month for unlimited passes that you'll be getting for free. So you'll get one starting in September and all the way until your graduation day. And so you're pretty much saving about $1,000 during the year. You'll also be able to put your federal student loans into deferment, which just means that you won't need to pay off on them until you're done with your City or Chicago program. And then any interest that's accrued on those loans are also going to be able to get paid by the Community for National and Community Service, which is the financial branch of AmeriCorps. And so we'll help you figure all of that out once you actually get here. But if you want some more information now, please go ahead and just email me and I'll send that over to you as quickly as I can. We also do have childcare assistance. And so if you have a child and you're planning on doing City Year, we will definitely help you get that set up. We also pay for you to have health insurance if you don't currently have health insurance, or if you're getting aged out of your parent or guardian's health insurance. City Year actually pays for our Corps members to have health insurance. So it's not coming out of your stipend, but it's out of City Year's budget that we're paying for. Do note, however, that this is a very basic health insurance, and so you won't have vision or dental, but it is still a pretty good preventative insurance program in case you are interested in having health insurance. We also have employee assistance program, and so mental health is one of the things that we take very seriously here at City Year, because it's just a part of the work that we do. And so not only do you get with the City Year larger network 6 free 30-minute sessions with a counselor, you also get access to our professional psychologists that are on staff that are paid by City Year Chicago and free for our Corps members. And you can schedule them anytime between Tuesday to Thursday. You'll get more information about how to do this when you're actually here, but you'll pretty much get them, they're available Tuesday to Thursday, and you're able to sign up for any sessions with them, because we recognize that taking care of your mental well-being is a big priority for our site. And so that's something that we've invested in over the last year, and we've gotten really great feedback on it. You also will be receiving a uniform piece. I will be sharing more in terms of the specifics of the uniform pieces in the next couple of weeks. We will actually be changing our uniforms this year, and so it's really exciting because no one has ever, we actually haven't seen the uniform pieces yet, and so I'm really excited to be sharing that information with you all soon. It's actually on the website now, but I'll go ahead and do a mass email in order for you all to see that, but that's coming soon. But you pretty much get uniform pieces to serve with City Year. Everything from the waist up, I like to say, is provided. And so everything from your shirts, your polos, your vests, your all-weather jacket to your backpack, all of that is provided to you by City Year. The couple of things that you'll have to provide on your own, however, are going to be your black pants, your black belt, and black shoes. And so those, again, or black belt, black shoes, and black pants. And again, those are things that you have to provide on your own. You can go to any thrift store, and so you don't necessarily need to buy some like super expensive dress pants. You can just kind of buy anything that you find over the next couple of months. But again, just kind of think about those things as you're preparing for City Year Chicago. Last but not least, you also are eligible for food benefits such as SNAP, which is pretty much just food stamps. And so, as a City or AmeriCorps member, you qualify for this because your stipend is not considered income, and so you actually are typically, qualified for the full amount of food benefits, which is really exciting. Also, having food benefits qualifies you for cheaper internet with AT&T. I think it's about $5 or $10 a month. It's super cheap. And then you also get access to cheaper Amazon Prime membership just by having food stamps. And so that's not necessarily city year specific, but that's going to be something that is shared with you because you will most likely be on food stamps while you're in the Corps. Um, some other benefits, I just want to make sure this is changing. Any questions so far before I keep going? Okay, this is not working very well. Awesome. Cool. No questions so far, it looks like, which is great. Awesome. Cool. So, in terms of leadership after City Year, so we actually have something called Leadership After City Year, which is pretty much just saying that we are prioritizing that as something that we want. We understand that City Year is only going to be 10 to 11 months of service, and so we want to make sure that you are prepared for your year after City Year, and so that is something that we try to prioritize during your core year. So one of the things is having a LACY plan. And so as early as November, December, we'll start talking to you guys about what do you want to do after City Year and help you prioritize that. And so we have a lot of professional development workshops lined up for you. Your impact manager will be the person that is actually supervising you during your core year. And so that'll be something that you also get as support. We have an annual career fair that we put on during your core year hours, during your service hours in order to support you again in finding a job that is specific to kind of what you're looking for during City Year. We also have a pretty robust alumni board that hosts a networking event every year called 18-minute networking. And typically what that is you'll have 3 rotations of 18 minutes each, where you'll get to interact and network with people of all different career sectors. And we'll put you in rotations based on your career interests. And so our alumni board is responsible for recruiting and having people from all different sectors and introducing you and helping you kind of learn what networking is and the importance of networking. And so you'll have access to that as well. Like I said, there are some professional development workshops with corporate sponsors. And so Deloitte puts on a day of development for our core members. And then Comcast also does this as well. And so you get several different types of workshops with our corporate partners. You have university and career partnerships. And so there are different universities and career partners that recognize the value of City Year as a year of service. And so you actually also get access to a bunch of different universities and career partners that provide special kind of incentives and benefits to City Year alums. And then, like I mentioned before, you also have access to a robust alumni network. A lot of people think that City Year is only for people who are interested in education and nonprofit, and that's just simply not true. City Year's, the skills that you learn during City Year are kind of transferable to pretty much any career sector. And I think it's really cool to see all the different things that City Year alums go into. And so even the people that I got to serve with, a lot of them are in med school, farm school, law school, or actually practicing law, social workers, teachers. There are so many people that are just doing all kinds of different things and all kinds of really cool things. And it's just cool to kind of see what that looks like and connecting with people who understand, again, what City Year is and then helping you kind of in your next steps and mentoring you through that. All right, so we're going to talk about living in Chicago next. Any questions so far about Lacey or leadership after City Year? Awesome. Well, I don't know why this is. Okay. Let's do this again. Okay. Cool. Awesome. So living in Chicago, so I don't know how many of you are going to be new to Chicago, but every year about half of our core, I would say about half of our core is from Chicago and the other half is not. And so you're in good company either way. I was new to Chicago when I first served at City Year, and so it was a really kind of cool experience for me to live in a new city and learn to navigate Chicago and just kind of learn all about Chicago. And I'm so glad that I did it through City Year because working with City Year, Chicago helped me to learn the city in like such an intimate way that I never would have learned otherwise. And so I think that's something that's really exciting about City Year. The first thing that I want to kind of talk about getting around is, and living in Chicago is about getting around Chicago. And so there are a couple different options. Number one, you can drive in the city. I would recommend that you don't unless you actually have access to a car and you have people who are helping you pay for car payments or car insurance and parking, because it can get a little pricey having a car in the city, and gas right now is a little expensive. It's a little expensive. It's almost $4. It's like $3.80 something right now. And so filling up my little sedan is about like $50, $60. And so I would definitely recommend that you don't drive if you don't want to, because it's absolutely possible to get around Chicago with public transit. You also, like I said, have public transit. The map that you see in front of you are all the different train lines. And then in between all of those train lines are all of these different buses that connect you to all kinds of different places in Chicago. And so the first 6, 7 years of my time in Chicago, I actually didn't have a car. And so I was literally just taking Lyft or taking CTA, which is the Chicago Transit Authority, the buses and trains everywhere. And I got around just fine. And you will also find that. And so I would definitely recommend traveling by public transit if that's something that you are really interested in and want to learn the city a little bit better. If you are a biker, I've got good news for you, because Chicago is a super bike friendly city. And so that's something that's also really exciting. And so if you are a biker, definitely bring your bike. A lot of people that I know in Chicago also bike during the winter. I am a California girl at heart. And so you'll never see me biking or doing anything crazy in the winter. But if that is something that you're interested in doing, I would definitely encourage that. I just saw a question really quickly, so I'm going to just stop here for a second. Sarah, you're asking, are Timberlands still part of the uniform for shoes? So unfortunately, Timberlands are no longer part of our uniform pieces. They used to be a sponsor of City Year Inc., which is a national organization, and unfortunately, I believe they were actually bought out by a different company, and so Timberland no longer sponsors City Year, and so our uniform shoes are actually just going to be black shoes, and so that's going to be a mostly black shoe. It can be a flat dress shoe for women, flat dress shoes for men, or like sneakers that are mostly black. And so if you have like a Nike shoe, for example, that's all black, and there is like a white Nike logo, you can wear those. But typically we like to say mostly black shoes, because most of your shoes should be black. I hope that answers your question. And then Richard, is there parking if we drive to our schools? So most of our schools actually do have parking lots. And so if you do want to drive, that's a great question, Richard. If you do want to drive to your school and service, then absolutely you're more than welcome to. But I was just making the case for people who might not have access to a car, because that is typically a concern of people who are coming from other cities. Great questions. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Trying to see why this isn't okay. So different neighborhoods in Chicago. This is getting so crazy. Okay. Different neighborhoods in Chicago. So Chicago, I don't know if you all knew this, but Chicago is actually made up of 77 different neighborhoods, which I think is really interesting. And what's cool is that all of those neighborhoods have a very distinct feel to it. Of those 77 neighborhoods, the ones that are listed on your screen are typically the ones that most of our core members live in. And so I broke it down by kind of the north, west, and south sides. And so north, Rogers Park and Uptown are two very popular neighborhoods that people live in, that are on the north side. In terms of the west side, Logan Square is a hugely popular neighborhood. Humboldt Park, Ukrainian Village, Avondale, and Pilsen are also on that list. And then South Side are Hyde Park, Bridgeport, Bronzeville, and Chinatown. If you guys haven't already, what I would really recommend is that you would go through the neighborhood guide that I've sent to you via the newsletters the last couple of months, because that neighborhood guide actually breaks down all of these neighborhoods and tells you a little bit more about them if you don't want to do your own research. I've kind of compiled a lot of the research on these neighborhoods already, and so it'll give you a little bit more around character feel around the neighborhoods, so that you have a better idea of what you're signing up for. Just kind of a quick feeler, have you all looked at the neighborhood guide at all, or is that something that you are unfamiliar with? And you can go ahead and just chat that to me so I can see it. Okay, I don't necessarily see any. Okay, well, Sophia, thank you for saying yes. Okay, so Kiana, okay, this is actually really helpful. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my other browser screen so that you can see what I'm doing right now. Give me 1 second, y'all. Stop sharing. Share my. Okay. So you should be able to see this window. And so if you all go to so this is the website that is for City of Chicago. So CYChicago.com is a website that was built this year specifically for you all in terms of incoming Corps members, because we wanted all of the information to live in one area. And so this is a really great resource for you in terms of finding just different resources. And so the onboarding checklist is one of these pieces. This checklist will actually have all of the important dates, but also all of the different items and the steps that you need to take in order to be ready for City or Chicago. And so there's, I think, 11 steps so far. There may be more as we get closer to your start date. But again, these are the most important 11 steps that you'll need to complete in order to be prepared for service. In terms of living, so there's our schools, and so you'll kind of see your impact and service model here about what all of our schools look like, what our current school partnerships look like. If you click on these links, you'll get to actually go straight to that school's website on CPS, and so that's really cool too. The next couple of ones are living, and so housing and roommates is where I'm going to actually show you all. And so housing and roommates actually has a lot of these resources for you. And so if you go down, these are some of the housing partnerships we have. Again, these are not necessarily endorsed by City Year, but these are apartment agency and management agencies that want to have a partnership with City Year. And so we put all that information on there as well. Finding housing, if you go under that section, there's it's hyperlinked in the website, City of Chicago's Neighborhood Guide. And it will actually take you literally to like a 5-page, maybe like a 6-page document that literally has the top 12 neighborhoods for City of Chicago AmeriCorps members. And it'll break down all of these different neighborhoods and where they're located, and has all this information here. And so again, I would highly, highly recommend that you look at this neighborhood guide, because it'll help you understand kind of what to look at and what to look for in neighborhoods. Questions really quickly? Okay, let me stop sharing this real quick. Okay, I just saw a couple questions come in and I want to make sure that, okay, so yeah, so like I said, I would really recommend that you all look at the neighborhood guide, because it'll be a really great resource for you. That website in general is a really great resource, so please go ahead and look at that. True Gibson, not sure if you saw Drew's question, but I would also like to know the answer. When will we be assigned to our individual schools? Great question. Okay, so for school placement, if you haven't already filled out the placement survey, please go ahead and do that as soon as possible, because that's a really important way that we place our people. And that survey actually takes an assessment of everyone's skill sets, experiences, all of those things that are really important to our school placement process. And so if you haven't already done that, please go ahead and do that as soon as possible. In terms of when you actually find out your school placement, you actually won't find out your school placement until about 2 weeks, I believe. So currently, I believe the last time I heard from our impact team, you'll be finding out on August 20th what your school team is. And so that is because we typically spend the first couple of weeks just kind of helping you get acquainted with all your other City or Chicago Corps members, because a lot of what happens during the year is specific to your school team, and we want to build community with the rest of the Corps. And with you all being our largest Corps in ever in our history. It's really exciting, but we also want to be really intentional about how we build your team and how we build this Corps. And so the first 2 weeks you'll actually spend in your journey teams. And so in that case, you'll find people that you'll be working with, that you'll be journeying with in terms of your city or experience. They won't actually be anybody on your school team, but they will be placed on all different teams. But you'll get together once every couple of weeks, once a month, in order to kind of reflect on your city or journey, which is why they're called journey teams. And so the first 2 weeks you'll be kind of placed on your journey teams, and then after the 2 weeks are over, you'll be placed on your school teams. Once we have everyone who is starting with city year, we're also doing that because we have a late start of August 20th for people who cannot start with us on the 6th. And we want to give those people an opportunity to join our school placement process as seamlessly as possible. And so that's another reason why we don't do school placements right away. And so you'll find out about 2 weeks after your service starts. I hope that answers your question. True and Drew, I believe, are the two people who asked that question. Drew, I know that, so you're asking because school placement is important in knowing where to live. I agree with that. However, because you don't find out your placements, what we ask is that you find your housing based on the neighborhood guide, and we will try to place you. We look at where you will be living in order to place you, and so we take that into consideration because we recognize that having a super long commute is not going to be conducive to your city or AmeriCorps member experience. And so we actually look into where you'll be living before we do placement of our Corps members. And so I would recommend just finding a neighborhood that you want to spend your time on your weekends in, and just kind of explore more while you're living in Chicago during your Corps experience. And then as a staff, we will be responsible for placing you on a team and at a school that isn't more than an hour and 15 minutes away. An average commute for Chicago Corps members right now is about an hour, and that's pretty typical because Chicago is a pretty big city. But again, we will try to make it so that we don't necessarily have you commuting for more than an hour or an hour and a half. Hour and 15 minutes is kind of our limit, because we recognize that that's going to drastically impact your experience. Sarah, you said for the TB test, who should we get that information to? If you guys have your TB tests already and want to send me your results, you can actually email me those like as early as now. So go ahead and you can email that to me. Awesome. It looks like I answered most questions. Cool. One more question from Drew. Thank you for answering that. Is there a Facebook group where I can network to find a roommate? Well, yes, Drew, there is. I believe that's also on the CY Chicago website, and I also sent that in your welcome to City or Chicago email. I can also send that to you directly, Drew, if you don't have a link for that. I have not added everybody yet, so I will go ahead and do that this afternoon. But there is a Facebook group that you should be joining. That's actually a really great way, like Drew mentioned, to network with people who are coming in next year and just kind of learn more about each other before we start. And so I would highly recommend, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and join that Facebook group. I will also be announcing like events that are happening during the summer. We try to have at least 1 or 2 events to get you all together before the year starts. And so we're hoping to go to a White Sox game again next year, this summer, before your core year starts, in order to kind of build community in that way. And then hopefully having some kind of like other outing where you all can join us as well. And so, like I mentioned, if you don't already have the Facebook group on your list, go ahead and get that done so that you're able to start building community with people. Drew, I just got the notification that you joined, or you asked to join, so I will approve that right after this call. Thank you. Awesome. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you have to, it is about 4:30, which I said I was going to actually end at 4:30, but because of technical issues, we are going over, and I apologize about that. So I can obviously post this link afterwards if you cannot stay for the rest of our time together. But if you can stay, I would love for you all to join me for the last couple of pieces because it's only a couple more. So let me share this screen with you. All right. So you should be able to see this now. So in terms of roommates, there are three different kind of ways to do this. The first one is living with non-city roommates. Oftentimes people will move to Chicago because they have friends or that they have college friends that are moving together or they have significant others that are moving together. And so you absolutely have the option of living with non-city roommates if you want. You can also live with other AmeriCorps members. And so if you haven't already seen the roommate survey and seen the roommate survey results, I would definitely recommend that you do that because it will help you find people who have similar living preferences as you. It is your responsibility to find someone that matches your preference. And so if you need support in look in filtering those results out or whatever that looks like for you, please schedule a call or a meeting with me because I want to help support you. But it is your responsibility to find and reach out to people that may have similar living preferences as you. And then last but not least, you can definitely live at home. And I would even recommend that if you are considering that because, again, your expenses are cut down significantly by living at home. And it's definitely a great option for people who are from Chicago. In terms of kind of the pros and cons of that, I would recommend living with other AmeriCorps members or living at home over living with non-city roommates only because if you live with other people who are not city or roommates, they might have a budget that's much higher than yours. Whereas if you live with other AmeriCorps members, your budget in terms of an apartment, in terms of utilities, all of those things will be very similar. And so it'll be a lot easier to find an apartment that's within your means. And so again, I would recommend living with other people. It's also really nice because I actually lived with two other AmeriCorps members when I was in city year, and it was great to be able to come home and talk to people who understood the experience but didn't necessarily know all the drama that was happening on my team because there were definitely some storms that we went through as a team. And so it's great to kind of be able to connect with people who have similar experiences as you because they're serving in city as well, but they don't necessarily have like the ins and outs of what you're dealing with as a school team. So that is really kind of up to you. It's really your preference. Like I said, you have a stipend, a biweekly stipend of $630 every 2 weeks. And so it is up to you on how you want to use it. But I would recommend kind of living within your means as kind of the number one priority at this point. In terms of how to find roommates, I'm going to, sorry guys. Okay, I need to stop sharing. Sorry. Okay, so in terms of how to find roommates, like I said before, there is a roommate survey that I created for you all to fill out your living preferences on what you would prefer in terms of your living situation. And so it's important because it asks you things like, I like to have people over. I don't like to have people over. I like to wake up early. I like to wake up late. I want to live with the same gender roommate. Like all these things that are really important to your living preference because I want your home to be a sanctuary during your core year. And so if you don't know how to find the roommate survey or the roommate survey results, please email me or call me because I want to make sure that you have access to all of those things. Like I said, it is your responsibility to reach out and use the contact info and connect about rooming together. But I will help you do all of those things if you're not sure where to start. So please email, call, contact me in order to get that set up. I just want to stop really quick to see if there are any questions. No questions yet. Awesome. Cool. So budgeting. So budgeting is really, really important to city year and your experience here. And so I'm going to go ahead and go through one quick thing to kind of start thinking about in terms of your relocation budget. So as you can see, there are a couple different things that people don't often think about when they're moving to Chicago, and so I wanted to bring those things up. So number one, traveling to the city, and so one of the things that I definitely recommend is within your roommate group, whether it's other City Air Corps members or non-City Air Corps members, I would recommend that one of you all travels to Chicago to see the apartment in person. And so your traveling to Chicago may vary because you may come here a couple of times, you may come here once, but definitely put it into the expense of your budget currently, to make sure that you have enough money to travel to Chicago. And so depending on how you're getting here, whether it's a flight, whether it's a bus, whether it's a train, whether it's your own car and just paying for gas, definitely start thinking about what that looks like. How are you eventually moving to Chicago? Do you have friends or family to help you? Can you carpool with somebody? Can you rent a moving van together with somebody that's near you? All of these things are really important to your move, and so just start thinking about those things. You also need a first and last month's rent, or you need your first month's rent and a security deposit. I'm sorry, a non-refundable move-in fee. And so typically in Chicago, landlords will do one of two things. You'll have to pay the last month's rent as a security deposit, or you may have to pay a non-refundable move-in fee, which will be a couple $100s that you don't get back, but that you pretty much just pay to move in. And so you'll have to save that, as well as your first month's rent, because you'll have to pay that at the lease signing. And so depending on how much your apartment is or how much those costs will kind of go and be divided into, you could need as much as $1,000 for this expense, because you can pay $500 for your last month's rent and then $500 for your first month's rent. So again, start to think about how much you have saved up, and if anyone can help you with your first month's rent, because you won't be getting your check until a couple weeks after you start with City Year. Another thing to think about is your application fee. So if you like a place and you want to apply to the apartment, you would have to pay an application fee occasionally when applying for the apartment. And so I would definitely start thinking about those costs as well. If you need to buy furniture, I'm not sure what you're bringing from, wherever you're coming from, but if you want to buy furniture, you would definitely need to start thinking about how you're going to be paying for that. One exciting thing that we're working on currently is having a garage sale of items that this year's Corps wants to donate or sell to all of you that are incoming. And so more information will be coming once we have some of those dates and logistics solidified. But that is something that we want to offer you this year, and it's going to be the first time that we're offering it. And so hopefully it does go well, because we really want to help you have an easier way of finding furniture and finding important household items. Some other things to kind of start thinking about is your first grocery store trip. Even though you are eligible for food stamps, it sometimes takes a while just to get approved for food stamps. And so in that meantime of waiting for your approval for food stamps, some of the things to start thinking about is just like, how much do I need to pay for groceries? And so I would definitely save up a couple $100s for that. As you start settling into your apartment, there will be random things that kind of come up. So do you need an what is it called? A power strip? Do you need some tape to kind of hang things up? Do you need some nails to hang things up? All these random things that you don't start thinking about until you actually start moving in, start saving up for that as well. The last couple of things, so transportation before the bus pass. And so like I mentioned before, your pass will be provided to you by September, the beginning of September. And so during the month of August, you'll have to provide your own transportation pass. And if you are using an unlimited transportation pass, it would cost you about $100. And so start saving that up as well. If you are trying to drive, the place that we're doing training will most likely have a parking situation, and so you won't necessarily have to pay for parking, which is great. But if you don't have access to a car, or if you and your roommates don't have access to a car and can't carpool, then I would definitely start saving up at least $100 for your transportation pass. And then last but not least, your childcare or loan repayments. Those are things that we are able to help you get enrolled into as an AmeriCorps member, but because it takes a while to get approved of these things and enroll you into AmeriCorps, the first 30 days or so, we ask that you have some kind of money on hand in order to pay off loan payments, especially if your grace period is over. So typically after you graduate, for example, if you're graduating in June, if you graduated in May, you typically have about a 6-month grace period that you don't have to worry about paying back loans right away. And so if that's the case, then you are good because you'd be enrolled in AmeriCorps by September. But if you're someone who graduated in December, for example, and your grace period is ending towards the end of August, you would have to start paying back loans right away. And so I would just have those that loan payment on hand in case you do have to pay that out of pocket before your loan forbearance goes through. Any questions about that? I don't see any questions so far. Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you all for staying on. I appreciate it. I know that we're going over a little bit. So, um, in terms of a sample budget, I did want to share this with you really quickly because I think it's important to kind of see what you're going to be working with once you're actually in city year. And so let me share my screen again. So this is a sample budget from a Corps member that's currently serving. Like I said, again, that $630 biweekly is going to be before taxes, and so estimated amount after taxes will be about $1,000 a month. That's on the lower end, but again, it can be anywhere between $500 to $600 depending on what you put on your tax forms. I would say definitely don't go over $500 if at all possible for your rent because again, your other expenses will kind of come into play. And so these are all kind of all the fixed expenses on the top. So cable, internet, cell phone, electric, water, all those utilities that you'll be responsible for living in your apartment. And then other kind of flexible expenses. So things that you don't necessarily have to pay every single month, but it's just more of an optional spending. And so groceries, dining out and entertainment. So if you want to go to the movies and watch things like Black Panther that come out during your core year, whatever it may be, those are all things that you want to start taking into account. If you have a car, again, parking, gas, insurance, all those things, that's a more optional flexible spending, a flexible expense, but start thinking about those things as well. And then other things like toiletries and clothing. Like I said, you get a uniform while you're here at City Year, but you would need to purchase like laundry detergent to do laundry and things like that. And so what I would honestly do right now is kind of if you don't already have a budget and already know how much you're spending on a monthly basis, I would highly recommend that you start just calculating what your monthly expenses are so that you're able to figure out, can I pay my expenses with just a city or a stipend? If that's an issue, please give me a call because I want to make sure that you're not struggling with this during your core year, but that you have this taken care of. I would say about 20% of our core members every year have a second job to help them with their expenses. It's not required because if people keep their expenses low, it's not required because again, people are able to manage their budgets on their own. But if you are someone that is going to be struggling because your expenses are a little bit higher, let me know now so that we can figure that out now versus again stressing over that later on. Cool. In terms of next steps, so things that you need to complete as soon as possible, if you haven't already, you should already have received this email. But if you haven't already completed onboarding, please make sure and complete your onboarding as soon as possible. You also need to complete your placement survey. And so, like I said, if you go to cychicago.com, you'll be able to see all of the onboarding checklist items. Onboarding and placement survey are at the top of the list. And so you'll need to get that done as soon as possible because that will help us with our placement and starting to look at who our incoming Corps members are and what skill sets there are in this Corps. Like I said again before, please join the Facebook group because it's a great way not only to meet other Corps members, but to get some announcements quickly, especially if you are someone who is on Facebook on a pretty regular basis. And then last but not least, CYCHICago.com. I've mentioned this several times, but I want to make sure that you understand how important this website is. But that CYCHICago.com checklist is going to really help you out in making sure that you're all set for your experience. Sarah, you're asking, will we get some sort of email to let us know that we are done with the onboarding process, just to let us know that everything is cleared? So Sarah, unfortunately, there is no automated email for onboarding, which is really unfortunate, I know. But if you're unsure of whether or not your onboarding has cleared, just go ahead and email me and I can tell you that really quickly. I will try to send so people who are not completing onboarding are getting emails from me, unfortunately, because that is my biggest priority is helping people who haven't completed onboarding versus notifying people who have. And so that's my biggest priority right now. And so if you're just curious, just send me an email and I'll make sure that you are all set. Just kind of as a rule of thumb, if you're at 76% complete, you are actually done. The rest of that percentage will be completed once you're done with registration, because there will be some things that you'll have to verify, like your direct deposit information and all of that. And so that will be completed after registration is over. But for now, what you have to do is be at 76% complete. If you're not sure about whether your items are done, I would just go ahead and refresh your inbox. And if no other inbox items come out, then that means you're done as well. But as a third kind of level of checking, go ahead and email me and I'll make sure to email you back about where you stand with onboarding. Also, in case you all don't know this already, the start date for the 2018-2019 core year is Monday, August 6th. Get excited because that is coming up really, really soon. I'm super excited for that, and I hope you are too. In terms of registration, we've talked about this a couple times at this point already, but I just wanted to remind you that you are required to attend an in-person registration session here in Chicago on one of the following dates. So July 27th, July 30th, July 31st, and August 1st. If you're not able to attend any of those registration days, you have to let me know now, because it could affect your start date. Because if you can't register by August 1st in Chicago, you will not be able to start with us on August 6th. And that is a non-negotiable that unfortunately we cannot move on, because that's an AmeriCorps compliance procedure. And so please, please, please let me know. The time frame for those registration dates right now will be 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. If that changes at all, I will make sure to let you all know, but please expect to be here for about 4 to 5 hours. The reason for that is because we go through a ton of different documents and information. We go through your benefits, we go through what CTA benefit looks like, we go through your member service agreement as an AmeriCorps member, and we go through all of the policies, rules, and regulations that are important for you to follow as an AmeriCorps member. We go through onboarding and making sure that we are verifying you as an employee and hiring you properly in our system. So all of these things are really important. So go ahead and block those days out, and I will send you confirmation of your registration date in about a month or so. And then last but not least, I wanted to talk about some documents in terms of things that are really important to bring to registration. So as someone mentioned already, TB tests, you have to bring your TB tests and proof that you are negative for TB. So if you don't bring that, you won't be able to go into schools. And so please make sure that that's something that you already have on hand. Some other documents, you absolutely need your social security card, because we need to verify that the social security number that you're putting into your system is actually correct. And so we do need verification of that. And so we need you to bring a hard copy of your social security card. You also need a passport. That's unexpired. If you don't have a passport, you can also bring some alternate forms of identification. And so that would be your birth certificate and a state ID. So like I said, you need a social security card regardless of where you are, a social security card. You need a passport. If you don't have a passport, you need your birth certificate and your state ID. All of those documents must be original copies. They need to be unexpired. And so if you don't have any of those items, I would highly recommend starting to get those things now, because it takes a couple of weeks to get approved or to get a second copy of these things. And so again, go ahead and get that squared away now so that you don't have to worry about it right before registration. So that was actually the last thing that I wanted to talk about today. Again, all this is super important to kind of you starting with City or Chicago. Are there any questions about anything that I talked about, or something that maybe I didn't mention that you have questions around? Sarah, you said, I'm so sorry. I have one more question. No need to be sorry. Questions are always good. When will we know which orientation date we have? So currently I have it on my calendar that I'll be notifying you of your orientation date by the end of June, beginning of July. And so if you have specific questions about your orientation date, or if you only could make one orientation date, let me know now so I can put you down for that date. I am trying to accommodate you as best as I can. I'm not trying to make this hard for you at all. And so I want to make sure that we can accommodate you as much as possible. And so just let me know, and I will confirm you for a particular date if you need that notification now, especially if you're someone that needs to fly into Chicago for registration. I'm happy to work with you. Drew, thank you, Drew. I'm glad. I hope you guys found this helpful. it's not mandatory that you guys attend these things, but it's something that I highly recommend because I go through so much information that's really important to your start date. And so, and just being prepared for service. And so hopefully you found this helpful. Thank you, Richard. Um, Jocelyn, you said, I have one quick question. Is it okay to wear black jeans or do we need dress pants? So I believe black jeans are not allowed for uniform because one of the reasons why we're changing them to black pants is that we want to seem more professional in the schools. And so black jeans are not necessarily super professional. And so I would definitely get some dress pants. Again, like I said, you don't have to spend a ton of money on these things. It's really easy to get some really cheap ones from the thrift store, but for now, no black jeans for your uniform piece. Thank you, Sophia, for joining me. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Awesome. Cool. Any other questions? I have a couple more minutes that I can stay on and just answer your questions for you all. So I don't know. I think that's on. Is that Anjali? Cool, Jocelyn. Thank you so much for joining me, y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks, Asha. Great. Awesome. So as I mentioned before, call me. Like there's at the bottom of my email signature, there's a schedule a call / meeting link that will take you to my calendar. And so you can actually schedule 30-minute meetings with me on my calendar. And so please feel free to use that. I don't care how many meetings you schedule with me. If you want to schedule 10 from now until August, happy to schedule those meetings with you. So go ahead and use that. Thank you, True. Thank you, Kiana. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I will talk to you tomorrow. If you have any questions, tomorrow we're actually having some currently serving AmeriCorps members answering questions tomorrow on the Facebook Live panel. And so join me there. If not, you can always email me or call me with your questions. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end this now. Thank you all for joining me. I will talk to you all soon. Really, really looking forward to having you all here really, really soon in a couple months. Thanks, everyone.